Ever find yourself daydreaming in an antique shop? Surrounded by all those treasures from the past.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get lost imagining the stories behind each piece.
It makes you wonder, what would it take to actually be a dealer in that world? To have the knowledge to spot a hidden gem, the skills to restore it to its former glory.
Well, get ready to find out. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of specialized antique dealing.
We've got some great resources lined up, career guides, interview advice, even insights from a platform called RoleCatcher, which I have to say uses AI in some pretty fascinating ways.
It's amazing how technology is changing every field these days, even one as steeped in tradition as antique dealing.
Right. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. What does a specialized antique dealer actually do?
Okay, so picture this. You walk into a shop crammed with antique furniture, vintage jewelry, maybe even a dusty old gramophone in the corner.
I'm already there.
And you need to figure out, is that chipped porcelain doll actually from the Victorian era? Is that worn leather-bound book a rare first edition?
Talk about pressure.
That's where the specialized part comes in. Imagine, instead of being a general antique dealer, you're known for your expertise in, say, Art Deco furniture.
So you become the go-to person for collectors looking for that specific style.
Exactly. It's about developing a deep understanding of a particular niche, the history, the materials, the craftsmanship, so you can spot fakes, assess value, and connect with the right buyers.
It sounds like being a detective, piecing together clues to uncover an object's hidden story.
It is. You're examining joinery, looking for maker's marks, researching historical periods. You need that sharp eye for detail to determine authenticity.
And once you've got that figured out, then comes the business side of things, right?
Right. And that's a whole other skill set, knowing what something is worth, understanding market trends, setting prices, negotiating with buyers.
It's not just about loving old things, it's about having that business savvy too.
Absolutely. And these days, it also means navigating the world of online marketplaces, social media, building an online presence.
Technology really does touch everything. But for someone drawn to history, to the thrill of the hunt, to connecting the right object with the right collector.
It can be an incredibly rewarding career.
Okay, so we've set the scene, the allure, the challenges, the unique blend of skills required. But how does one actually become a specialized antique dealer?
That's where RoleCatcher's insights come in handy. They've mapped out the different stages of this career path from newbie to seasoned pro.
And that's what we'll explore next. So you're listening to all of this thinking, okay, I'm sold. Where do I even begin?
Well, you can't just waltz into an auction house and expect to be handed a gavel and a team of assistants, right?
Definitely not. But RoleCatcher does a nice job breaking down those early career steps, right?
They do. They talk about it in terms of stages, kind of like leveling up in a video game. You start as an apprentice, soaking up knowledge, working alongside a more experienced dealer.
So very hands-on, lots of learning by doing. What would that look like in the antique world specifically?
Imagine you're spending your days surrounded by amazing objects, but you're also doing the nitty-gritty work, helping with appraisals, researching historical periods, maybe even trying your hand at restoring a piece of furniture.
So you're building a foundation, proving you can handle the details.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher gives an example. They say a successful apprentice might have certifications in appraisal or restoration, showing they've invested in those core skills.
Makes sense you don't become a master craftsperson overnight. So what's the next level up from apprentice?
The junior dealer. This is where you start to take on more responsibility. Independently appraising items, maybe even traveling to antique fairs, building relationships with customer.
Okay, so you're putting all that hard-earned knowledge into practice, and I'm guessing formal education might come into play more at this stage.
RoleCatcher seems to think so. They highlight an example of a junior dealer with a background in art history, showing how that academic knowledge can really complement those practical skills.
Right, because you need both, right? The hands-on experience and the theoretical understanding.
And if you keep honing your craft, building your reputation, eventually you reach the top senior dealer, overseeing inventory, developing marketing strategies, maybe even mentoring new apprentices. You've become the wise sage of the antique world.
From apprentice to master, what a journey. But RoleCatcher takes it a step further, talking about specialized antique dealers. What sets them apart?
It's like anything else. You can be a general practitioner or you can specialize in, say, cardiovascular surgery. You become the expert in a particular niche, whether it's 18th century porcelain, Art Deco jewelry.
So you're not just selling antiques, you're selling your expertise.
Exactly. And that often translates into higher value sales, a more dedicated clientele, because you're the go-to person for that specific thing.
Okay, so for our listeners who are ready to embark on this antique dealing adventure, how do they get their foot in the door? RoleCatcher has some tips on standing out right.
They do. And one thing they emphasize is tailoring your application to the specific job and employer. Which makes sense, right? You wouldn't use the same resume for every job you apply for.
Totally. So how do you do that effectively, especially in a field like antique dealing, where passion and experience are so important?
Well, they actually incorporate it directly into their platform. They have an AI-powered CV and resume builder. You upload your information, and it helps you highlight the most relevant skills and keywords for each specific job description.
Whoa, it's like having a secret weapon for your resume. But it's not all about keywords, is it?
No, not at all. RoleCatcher also stresses the importance of building your network in the antique world.
So attending antique fairs, joining professional organizations.
Exactly. Maybe volunteering at a museum or auction house. It's all about gaining experience, making connections, showing you're serious about this field.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what's on paper, it's about that genuine passion. But speaking of showcasing your skills, RoleCatcher has some interesting thoughts on that too.
They do. They talk about going beyond the traditional resume, creating a professional website or online portfolio where you can really highlight your knowledge, any notable pieces you've sold or handled.
Like a digital showroom, almost.
Oops.
And get this, they even use AI to analyze your interview responses.
Isn't that something? It helps identify areas for improvement, even suggest ways to tailor your answers to different job requirements.
Wow, it's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket. Technology is really changing the game. It's amazing how technology can be used in such creative ways to help people find their place in the world, even in a field like antique dealing, which you might think is all about tradition.
It's true, technology is changing every field these days, but it makes you wonder, with all this AI and data analysis, what does it even mean to be a specialist anymore?
That's a great question. Like, a computer could probably be programmed to tell you if a chair is an antique based on its measurements, the type of wood. But could it tell you if it was crafted by a particular artisan?
Right. Or whether it was once owned by a famous historical figure. That's where the human element still reigns supreme. It's that intuition you develop, that ability to see beyond the surface and connect the dots.
It reminds me of something you said earlier about uncovering an object's hidden story. A computer can analyze data, but it takes a human to find the meaning, the significance.
Absolutely. Think about that gut feeling you get when you discover a rare find, or that spark of excitement during a negotiation. Technology can't replicate those experiences.
Like, technology might be able to enhance our abilities, but it can't replace that human element of passion, of connection, of that thrill of the hunt.
Exactly. And I think that's something to keep in mind no matter what career path you're on. Yes, technology is important, but it's your unique skills, your passions, your experiences that truly set you apart.
It's about finding that balance, where technology works with your human skills, not instead of them.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe our deep dive today has inspired some listeners to look at the world around them with fresh eyes.
To appreciate the history, the craftsmanship, the stories hidden in plain sight.
You never know what treasures you might unearth. Maybe it's a family heirloom with a forgotten past, or a hidden gem tucked away in a local antique shop.
And on that note of exploration and discovery, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of specialized antique dealing. We hope you've enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, happy hunting.